Alrighty, here we go. So today's lesson is going to be about two-step equations. This is a lesson that you were taught last year. However, this is where Algebra 1 starts this year, so it should be more of a refresher than anything else. Before we get started, you're going to need a notebook or some paper so you can take some notes and write some problems down. You're also going to need a pencil or pen. At the end of this video, there will be some you-try problems where you will have to answer some questions. So make sure you're taking notes as we go along so that way you can do well on those questions. So the daily target is that students will be able to solve equations in one variable that contain more than one operation. So let's go through the steps of solving a two-step problem. What I mean by a two-step problem is something like this. You'll have an equation like 2x plus 4 is equal to 10. So let's see what we remember from last year. Your first step is always going to be to undo the addition or the subtraction. And I'll show you what that looks like. So in my example problem that I have below, remember, always find your equal sign and draw your line straight down the middle. Just helps you keep your sides separate. We talked about we want to box off the variable because that's what we're solving for. So we want to save that for later. So if I look at my example equation, 2x is my variable. I'm going to box that off. Outside the box, I have this plus 4, and I need to undo that. The opposite of addition is subtraction, so I'm going to take away 4 from both sides. The 4's will cancel. I draw my big underline, drop down that 2x equals, and then this side we're going to actually do the math. So 10 minus 4 just gives me 6. Last step is to undo the multiplication or division. So in my example problem, I have this 2x. Remember we talked about a lot last year. Anytime you have a number and then a variable, it's implied that there's some secret multiplication going on here. So to undo that multiplication, I need to divide. So I underline both sides and divide by 2. That'll let these guys cancel. So I bring down the x is equal to 6 divided by 2 just gives me 3. So those are your steps to solving a two-step equation with a little visual to kind of help you remember. So let's go through some more examples. All right, example 1. So I'm going to find my equal sign, draw my line down the middle, box off my variable. Outside the box, I see a minus 6. The opposite of subtraction is to add, so I'm going to put plus 6 on both sides. My 6's will cancel. Drop down that 3n equals, and then on the right-hand side, we're going to do some math. So 15 plus 6 gives me 21. Now I have one more step. This says 3 times n. So to undo that, I'm going to underline both sides and put divide by 3. My 3's will cancel, and I get n is equal to 7. Let's do another one, example 2. So again, I'm going to find my equal sign, draw my line straight down the middle to keep my sides separate. Find your variable, box it off for later. Outside the box, I see a plus 3. To undo that addition, I'm going to subtract 3. Bring down that 15x equals, and on this side, 18 minus 3 just gives me 15. This says 15 times x, so the opposite of that is to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 15. That'll make these cancel, and I'll get x is equal to 1. So those are your two basic examples to kind of get you started. Now let's take a look at two examples with some negatives and fractions involved. I'm going to first clear my screen and then move down. Example 3, same process. Find your equal sign, draw your line straight down the middle. I'm going to box off my variable. However, my variable has a minus sign in front of it, so this is a negative x. Last year, we were very specific to make sure you include the sign in front of the term. So that minus sign goes with the x. They have to be boxed off together. Outside the box, I have a positive 5. There's nothing in front of the 5, so it's implied that it's positive. To undo this positive 5, I need to make it a negative. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. My 5's will cancel. I'm going to drop down that negative x equals, and then 17 minus 5 just gives me 12. You're not done yet. Our goal is to solve for x, and we have solved for a negative x. Remember, this really says negative 1x is equal to 12. So to get rid of this negative 1 times x, I'm going to get rid of it by dividing both sides by a negative 1. That'll make that cancel, and I get x is equal to negative 12. So be very careful with your signs. We are in Algebra 1. There's going to be a lot of negatives involved. Make sure we're careful. And finally, example 4. Draw my line down the middle. Find my variable, and this time my variable is part of a fraction, and there's also a minus sign in front of it. So I'm going to box off the minus sign with the fraction. I'm saving all of that for later. Outside of the box, I have a negative 9. The opposite of that is to add 9 to both sides. My 9's will cancel. I'm going to drop down the negative y over 7 equals. Now over here I have a negative 12 plus 9. If you have a calculator, type it in exactly how you say it, negative 12 plus 9. If you don't, you need to remember our integer rules from last year. I have different signs. Different signs mean subtract. 12 minus 9 would give me 3. I would keep the sign of the bigger number. 12 is a bigger number, so I would keep that negative with it. Highly recommend using a calculator. Remember, there's a calculator on our Google Classroom page that works with negatives and fractions and all that good stuff, so make sure you access that if you need it. All right, let's finish it off. So now on the left-hand side, this says negative y divided by 7. This little fraction bar here stands for division. The opposite of division is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 7, but I also need to get rid of this negative. To get rid of a negative, I'm going to multiply it by a negative because a negative times a negative will give me a positive. So this negative 7 will cancel with this negative 7, and I can just bring down the y equals. I need to also multiply this side by negative 7. Whatever you do to the left, you must do to the right. Negative 3 times negative 7 gives me a positive 21. Again, if you struggle with your negative rules, use a calculator. Type that in exactly how you say it. All right, your turn. Let's go through some problems together. So problem 1, which part of this expression would I box off? I would box off the 3x. Outside of the box, I see a minus 4. How do I undo a minus 4? I would add 4 to both sides. 4's will cancel. Bring down the 3x equals 14 plus 4 gives me 18. One more step. What do I need to do to get x by itself? I divide both sides by 3. The 3's will cancel, and I'm left with x is equal to 6. Did you get that answer? Let's do another one. Example 2. Find your equal sign and draw your line down the middle. What do I box off? I box off the 4p. Outside of the box, I see a positive 19. How do I undo that? Minus 19 from both sides. Drop down the 4p equals 83 minus 19. Again, you can either use a calculator or you can just do it off to the side. That'll give me 64. How do I get rid of this 4 that's in front of the p? Divide both sides by 4. And I get p is equal to 16. How are we doing? So far, so good? Let's do over 2 more problems together. Problem 3. What should I box off? I box off the t over 4, and I'm also going to draw my line down the middle. How do I get rid of what's outside the box? I add 10 to both sides. So my 10s will cancel. Drop down t over 4 equals -6 plus 10. Again, type that in exactly how you see it. Use the calculator. Will give you a +4. Now, what do I do to get t all by itself? Remember, we said this fraction bar stands for division. To undo division, I need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. This will cancel, and I get t equals, what's my final answer? Good, t is equal to 16. One more problem, problem 4. What should I box off? Box off the -a. I'm also going to draw my line down the middle. What should I do first? -6 from both sides. My 6's cancel. Drop down the -a is equal to 8 minus 6 just gives me 2. What's my final step? Remember, this says negative invisible 1 times a. So to undo that, I need to divide both sides by -1. This will cancel. I get a is equal to -2.